My name is Serafina, and I've been married for 5 years. My husband is the CEO of a prominent company in City A, and ours is a marriage of business alliance. My father inherited my grandfather's construction company. To elevate the collaboration between the two companies to new heights, a marital alliance was necessary, so I was married off. Everything felt both unbelievable and inevitable. My husband is named Damien. Only after marrying him did I learn that he had a childhood sweetheart, his white moonlight. I think if this were a novel, my character would definitely be the vicious supporting female who tears them apart, the kind who deserves a miserable end. After graduating from college, I married my husband Damien through a family arrangement. Our marriage ceremony was grand. As it was a business alliance, the wedding was packed with guests. It was also on that day that I met my new husband for the first time. Yes, the first time I saw the groom was on our wedding day. My husband's excuse was that he was too busy with company matters. Back then I foolishly believed him. After marriage, we lived alone in the villa prepared by Damien's parents for us. They said they were afraid of disturbing our newlywed private world, but from the day we moved into the villa, I rarely saw my husband. Most of the time it was just me and the housekeeper at home. 1 month after moving into the villa, I gradually adapted to married life. Every morning when I opened my eyes, there were sweet and delicious meals ready to eat. Although my husband didn't come home, he never lacked anything in my life. He gave me a monthly allowance of $500,000. Bored, I'd go out for some shopping and beauty treatments. Occasionally, my mother-in-law would call me out for afternoon tea. My married life was very happy actually. Before I got married, I was practically invisible at home. My mom was my dad's first wife, and their marriage was also a business alliance. But unlike my marriage with Damien, they fell in love after getting married. Yes, it's that dramatic. Before they got married, they each had their own lovers but were forced to break up due to family pressure. Unexpectedly, after getting married, they developed feelings for each other, and eventually had me. For the first 3 years of my life, I was very happy with loving parents and a warm family. When I was 3 years old, my mother's former lover returned, and their old flames reignited. To go on dates with him, Mom used me as an excuse every time. For that man, she resolutely divorced Dad. On the day she left, she didn't say a single word to me. She just packed her things, didn't even glance at me or Dad, and walked away with such finality. I watched my mother's retreating figure, crying my heart out. Countless cries of Mom didn't make her turn back to look at me even once. That day, I didn't just lose my mother. I lost my father too. From that day on, Dad began to ignore me. He acted as if his daughter didn't exist, spending his days either working or going out with others for fun. In the end, it was Grandpa who couldn't bear to see me suffer and took me to live by his side in Hetching. That was until I turned 19 when Grandpa passed away from illness. After Grandpa's funeral, I returned to my father's home. During those years, my father had also started his own family with his first love. 3 years after my parents' divorce, he reunited with her at a banquet, just like Cinderella meeting her prince. My father encountered his first love, while she was being harassed by a spoiled young man. After he intervened, their old flames reignited. A year later, my father remarried. Another year after that, I gained a younger brother. Now I have 2 half-brothers and a half-sister. My stepmother has been very good to me in daily life. She treats me and my younger siblings equally. Whatever my siblings have, I have too. However, every time the family gathers for a meal, I always feel like an outsider, like I don't belong. The 5 of them are so affectionate. Anyone looking at them would think this family is nothing but warmth. So even though my stepmother and siblings are quite friendly toward me, deep down I just couldn't accept it. That's why since starting college, I rarely went back to that home unless absolutely necessary. This continued until I graduated. I still remember that period near graduation when I was busy working on my thesis every day. One day my father called me home from school. The moment I stepped through the door, he told me he had arranged a marriage for me, with the wedding scheduled in 2 months. The invitations had already been sent out. He said I didn't need to worry about anything. Just show up on the wedding day as a beautiful bride. He told me that my future husband had shown extraordinary talent and brilliance since childhood, excelling in both academics and every other aspect. He added that the man was handsome, decisive, and firm in handling matters, yet not overly ruthless, remarkable for his age. He said that this marriage arrangement was something he worked hard to negotiate, and the other party is the CEO of a listed company. Their family status is far above ours. He said that my future parents-in-law are very satisfied with me, and if I marry into their family, there will definitely be no conflicts between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. He said that since the other party has managed the company so successfully, if I could marry him, it would benefit our family's business, and it would be good for me as well. He said that my personality is too introverted and indecisive, so having someone like that as his son-in-law would put his mind at ease. Just like that, from start to finish, no one ever asked if I was willing. Everyone believed that marrying Damien was a stroke of luck that came once in 8 lifetimes, as if stepping in dog shit had somehow granted me this fortune. Just like that, I married Damien. It wasn't until the 3rd day after our wedding that we finally went to get our marriage certificate. Damien vanished from my presence, to be exact. After that, I started playing the role of Damien's wife in the eyes of others, but in reality, during the half year I was married to Damien, I only saw him 3 times. The first time was at a banquet where I had to accompany him. The second time was during my mother-in-law's birthday celebration. The third time was when I bumped into my legally wedded husband dining with another woman at a Western restaurant I frequented. While out shopping, I gazed at my perpetually expressionless husband, who was now looking at her with an affectionate and indulgent smile, tolerating her petty tantrums with such patience. To be honest, witnessing this scene left me utterly astonished to see him so tolerant and doting toward that woman. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I could never have imagined it. As for me, watching this spectacle didn't stir any feelings of heartbreak, sadness, jealousy, or envy in my heart. Instead, I simply thought how extraordinary. If not for the delicate nature of my position, I would have loved to stay and keep watching. After casting one last glance at the pair, I left the restaurant without eating and headed to a different Chinese eatery. After finishing my meal, I went back home. In fact, the only one in the whole family who was kind to me was my mother-in-law. She often invited me out, bought me things, cared for me, and showed me affection. She thought she was hiding it well, but in truth I knew everything. Every time I accompanied her shopping, when we passed by the children's playground, she would always stand there watching the kids playing inside with an unconscious smile on her face. Though her expression quickly calmed down as if afraid I'd notice, she would occasionally steal a glance at my belly, her face betraying a hint of regret before swiftly looking away. She thought she was hiding it well, but in truth I knew everything. I just said nothing because I understood an old woman simply wanted to hold her grandchild, but this wish I couldn't fulfill for her. Because in these 5 years, my so-called husband and I never shared a bed. Even on our wedding night, we slept separately. I took the bed and he slept on the sofa, and that was only because we were staying at the old house that night. That's how it was. I'd been Damien's wife in name for 5 years. 3 years later, Damien and I were called back to the old house for a holiday. We had dinner together and watched the live replay of that day's dragon boat race. Honestly, that day I always regretted waking up too late in the morning. Otherwise, watching the race live would definitely have been more fun. That evening, Damien returned to the villa with me, which I found quite unusual. It was arguably the first time he had come back to this home in the past 5 years. Until the moment we entered the house, he called me into the study, placed a document in front of me, and I saw the large words on the cover, divorce agreement. I lowered my head to look at the document. He said to me, "Let's get divorced. There's no future for us and I don't want to delay you any longer. Take a look at this document, and if you have any questions, feel free to speak up." I glanced up at him briefly before returning my attention to the divorce agreement. Actually, the compensation he offered me was quite generous. Aside from this villa where I live, there are several high-rise apartments and other upscale neighborhoods in the city, along with a small farmhouse outside the city and a hot spring villa. He also gave me $50 million in cash. Including commercial properties in other cities, a rough estimate comes to around $300 million. With my dowry added, it totals $400 to $500 million. It's truly amazing. Getting married turned me into a wealthy woman. After reading the documents, I said nothing and immediately picked up the pen to sign. Then I handed the papers back. I could sense that Damien sighed in relief after seeing my signature, but that no longer mattered to me. I asked him how he planned to explain things to both families. He said I didn't need to worry. He would handle everything. He told me that he had mistreated me all these years because our marriage was forced upon him by his family. Back then he had no choice but to marry me. If I felt the compensation in the divorce agreement wasn't enough, I could bring it up. He would fulfill my requests. I said these were enough. I wished him and that woman happiness. Just like that, a month later I received my divorce certificate. I don't know what he told the two families, but they didn't say anything about our divorce. Maybe they did, but nothing reached me. During this time, my former mother-in-law kept visiting me. Every time she took me out, she bought me expensive jewelry. I could tell she wanted to make it up to me. I know Damien must have said something to her. But I pretended not to know and accepted everything she gave me because only by doing this could I lessen the guilt in her heart. Later, I understood what the guilty look in my ex-mother-in-law's eyes meant and why my in-laws didn't question our divorce. Because that woman was pregnant. But it had nothing to do with me anymore. The moment I got the divorce certificate, I immediately returned to the villa. The butler and the housekeeper had already left. They had returned to their original home. Of course, I packed some clothes and toiletries into my suitcase and gathered all the other things that belonged to me. As for those jewelry pieces and gemstones, I took a portion home and gave them to my stepmother and sister. The rest I packed up and left in the villa. Then, without choosing a destination, I bought the earliest domestic flight ticket available, told no one, and just left like that. It wasn't until I boarded the plane that I realized the ticket I bought was for Gyeong City. 3 hours later I arrived. After getting off the plane, I took a taxi and went to the 5-star hotel I had researched online. I checked. I freshened up thoroughly in the hotel room and slept soundly. When I woke up, it was already dark, and the night markets of Yunnan and Guizhou had begun. I went out and indulged in the delicious local cuisine at the night market, eating until I was completely full. Back at the hotel, I washed up and then rested. The next day I woke up very early. Looking at this unfamiliar city, I felt inexplicably excited. I went to the hotel's 3rd floor and enjoyed their specialty breakfast along with a sweet cup of soy milk. It felt like the sweetness could reach my heart. Back in my room for the first time ever, I put on a beautiful makeup look and changed into a green printed halter dress. I grabbed a hat, put on sunglasses, picked up my bag, slipped on a pair of flats and headed out. During breakfast, I had already planned my itinerary. Since it was close to the hotel on the first day, I went to see the waterfall, played in the water, tried rafting, and experienced many thrilling activities. It wasn't until evening that I took a taxi back to the hotel. After taking a shower, I went to bed early. Over the next few days, I gradually visited the most famous attractions in the city. On the last day, I suddenly had an idea. I wanted to check out a bar. Since childhood, I had never been to such a place, but that day I really wanted to see what it was like. So that night, I went to the city's largest bar. Only after entering did I realize that what others had described paled in comparison to the actual experience. It was far more overwhelming. The dim and hazy lights flickered incessantly while groups of people sat together, clinking glasses, laughing and flirting. On the dance floor, men and women jumped wildly to the deafening beat of the music. I walked alone to the bar and ordered the mildest alcoholic drink available. Sitting at the counter, I watched these chaotic and frenzied men and women with curiosity. Before I knew it, I had finished my drink. One glass led to another, and after 3 drinks I felt my stomach bloated. I hurried to find the restroom but had to ask several staff members before finally locating it. By then I was already slightly tipsy. After using the restroom, I started feeling uneasy. Who would have thought that even the mildest drink in this bar was too strong for me? Seizing the last remnants of my consciousness, I made it back to the hotel. But little did I know fate had a cruel joke in store for me. That night, just as I returned to my hotel room and was about to take a shower, I discovered the shower was broken. After contacting guest services, the hotel manager eventually moved me to another room. I mustered all my remaining strength to move my luggage to the new room. After a quick wash, I fell asleep without remembering to check if the door was properly closed. The next morning, I woke up to an aching body only to find a man lying beside me. My mind went blank. There was no need to think twice about what had happened. I slept with a stranger. It happened, yet I remained calm. Last night I was drunk, but my mind was still clear. I knew exactly what I was doing. I didn't want any trouble. The man was clearly not an ordinary person. Just from his clothes you could tell. Quietly I took out clothes from my suitcase, pushed my luggage softly out the door, and closed it behind me. Only when I saw the room number did I realize I had entered the wrong room. Last night I went to the front desk, checked out, and left in a hurry. I had planned to leave today, but I never expected this to happen. I found another hotel and rented a short stay room for 3 hours to freshen up properly. Looking at the marks left on my body by that man, I finally couldn't hold back and cursed, mixed with what could have been bath water or tears. I vented my anger fiercely in the bathtub. After washing up, I set an alarm for 2 hours later and rested. When the alarm went off, I felt a bit more refreshed. Grabbing my suitcase, I randomly found a restaurant, had a quick meal, then hailed a taxi and headed straight to the airport. Arriving at the airport, I saw that the flight I booked still had a little over an hour before takeoff, so I leisurely checked in. Only when I finally sat safely on the plane did I feel like I could finally let out a sigh of relief. This incident didn't affect my travel plans at all. I allowed myself to forget about it. After getting off the plane, I directly transferred to my next destination. Just like that, I traveled for over a month straight, but my journey unexpectedly came to a forced stop in the province because I discovered I was pregnant. As for how I found out, it was because my always punctual period had gone missing. Seeing those 2 lines, I knew that one night had left me with a child in my womb. I didn't know what to do. After deep deliberation and struggle, I decided to terminate it. I couldn't keep it, or rather I didn't dare to. But when I walked into the hospital's gynecology department and scheduled the abortion procedure under the doctor's disapproving gaze, standing at the entrance of the operating room waiting, I watched as one after another, alone or accompanied by family members, women emerged from the procedure hunched over in pain. Seeing them in such distress, I grew terrified. I don't even remember how I left the hospital, my mind numb. I wandered aimlessly along the street until, without realizing it, I found myself at the gates of a kindergarten. It was just dismissal time, and the school entrance was crowded with parents picking up their children. I stood quietly at the kindergarten gate, my gaze drifting through the fence to rest upon the children laughing and playing. Their laughter, like spring sunshine, warm and bright, gradually dissolved the fear in my heart. Watching them, the moment the school gates opened, they dashed towards their parents like eagerly hungry chicks returning home, bouncing and skipping. At that moment, something deep inside me was stirred. It was as if I could see my own child in the future. I was running towards me when school ended. At that moment, I suddenly made a decision. I would keep this child, giving it a chance and giving myself a chance too. I returned to the hospital and told the doctor that I wanted to keep the baby, asking them to give me a pregnancy test order. After completing a series of tests, the doctor told me the baby was very healthy and that there might be 2 babies in my belly. I was completely stunned by the surprise before I could even process the news. The doctor informed me that my body was a bit weak and malnourished. I was advised to take it easy, rest well, and replenish more nutrients. This would be beneficial both for the baby and for me. The moment I decided to keep the baby, my travel plans came to an end. Looking at the beautiful city of Yunche, I thought giving birth in this city wouldn't be so bad. To settle down, first and foremost, I needed a house. Tempted by the unlimited options, I consulted an agency, and based on my requirements, they recommended many properties. I carefully selected 5 of them. I asked the agency to take me to see these 5 houses. After all, online photos can never compare to seeing them in person. After careful consideration, I chose a guest house that was relatively close to the hospital, and also near a scenic area. This is a 3-story guest house with a courtyard. Entering through the unique wooden gate reveals the true charm of the guest house. Externally, the guest house adopts the distinctive architectural style of Yun City, primarily featuring wooden structures complemented by gray tiles and white walls, giving it a rustic yet elegant appearance. The flying eaves and carved decorations on the roof add a touch of sophistication and artistic charm to the homestay. Upon entering the homestay, the first floor features a spacious reception lobby furnished with comfortable sofas and coffee tables for guests to relax and socialize. On one side of the lobby is the dining area, which offers local delicacies and specialty dishes for lodging guests, allowing them to savor the authentic flavors of Yun City during their stay. The second and third floors comprise the guest room area, with a total of 30 rooms. Each room boasts unique designs and decorations. Some guest rooms feature ethnic-style bedding and curtains, creating a rich ethnic atmosphere, while others are themed around nature, adorned with fresh flowers and greenery, making guests feel as if they are immersed in the great outdoors. The guest rooms are also equipped with modern amenities such as air conditioning, television, and wireless internet. The entire homestead has a rectangular layout, resulting in a spacious courtyard. A pebble path runs through the center of the courtyard. To the left of the homestead's courtyard is a small garden filled with a variety of blooming flowers and plants in full bloom. The flowers are vibrant and fragrant. To the right is a pavilion with a small pond where lotus leaves and a few lotus flowers can be seen. Behind the homestead stands a 2-story detached villa. The agent said this also belongs to the homestead owner and is sold together with the homestead. I went inside the villa to take a look. The villa's decor style is very similar to the homestay. The first floor has a dining area, living room, 2 bedrooms, 1 shared bathroom and a storage room. The second floor has 4 bedrooms, a study, and a small lounge with a large terrace. The third floor is a small attic. After looking around, I really liked both the homestay and the villa. After negotiating with the agent, I ultimately bought this homestay and the villa behind it for $3 million. That same afternoon, I went with the homestay owner to complete the property transfer procedures. The next morning, I contacted the appliance store owner to deliver and replace all the necessary household appliances for the guest house. Then I reached out to the home textile store to replace all the bedding, sheets, and similar items. Finally, I hired a cleaning company to give both the guest house and the villa a thorough cleaning. After all the preparations were done, I moved everything from the hotel into the villa. Following that, without wasting any time, I booked a flight back to City A. Yes, I decided to return to City A to pack up all my belongings and bring them back because if there are no surprises, I should settle in Yen City for the next few years. On the day I returned to City A, I contacted a local moving company to relocate all my personal belongings from the villa. I spent a total of 3 days in City A. I went back home and told them I had found a job in High City that I really liked. I planned to live there, and if nothing unexpected happened, I probably wouldn't be coming back. I didn't care how angry or furious my father was. That same day, I boarded a plane and returned to Yun City. I've hired 10 staff, 2 front desk attendants, 4 in the kitchen and 4 for cleaning. On a beautiful sunny morning, my homestay officially opened for business. Since it's a homestay, most bookings come from online platforms. The first month saw relatively low occupancy, but I wasn't concerned. I opened this place mainly to keep myself occupied. Unexpectedly, starting from the second month, my homestay gradually gained popularity online. After another 3 months, it actually climbed onto Yun City's homestay rental rankings. As the business gradually improved, my belly also grew noticeably larger. To date, I'm already over 6 months pregnant. At 3 months pregnant, when I went to the hospital for a prenatal checkup, the doctor accurately told me that I was expecting twins and that the babies were very healthy. At 7 months pregnant, I hired 2 nannies at a high salary. Being pregnant with twins, my belly was already quite large by then, and it had begun to interfere with my daily life. At 8 months pregnant, it was Chinese New Year. I gave each of my employees an annual bonus and some holiday gifts. As for the 2 nannies, during the holiday days, they took turns coming during the day to take care of me. After the new year, the homestay reopened for business. By then I was nearing my due date. During that period, my hands, feet, and face were swollen. Walking was difficult every day, but I still made sure to take a short walk after meals. Finally, early in the morning on February 6th, I woke up feeling extremely uncomfortable. My stomach was also faintly aching. For some reason, I had a strong premonition I was going into labor. I called the nanny and asked her to help me pack my things. Even though the delivery bag was already prepared, I still needed to double-check everything. During lunchtime, I suddenly felt something warm and wet running down my leg. Looking down, I realized my water had broken. I didn't bother with anything else. I quickly finished my meal, called for the nanny to grab my things, and had her help me out the door to the hospital. By the time we arrived at the hospital, my stomach had gradually started hurting. From afternoon until midnight and past 2 a.m., I finally gave birth to twins. Exhausted, I didn't even get to see the babies before passing out. I slept until the next afternoon before gradually regaining consciousness. When I opened my eyes, the nanny Grace was by my side caring for me, while the other nanny, Monica, was absent. Grace told me Monica had gone to check on the babies. I looked around but didn't see them. Grace explained that since they were twins and quite small, they were currently in incubators. Not until the day before discharge did I finally meet my two babies. Seeing those little ones smiling and reaching out to me, I suddenly felt an inexplicable ache in my heart. This is what I gave birth to after 10 hours of pain, my blood-related family. To better take care of myself and the babies, I decided to go to a postpartum care center. With the help of 2 nurses in choosing, I selected a high-end postpartum care center that costs $150,000 per month. On the day of discharge, the postpartum care center sent a dedicated car to pick me up. At the center, I experienced meticulous care and attention. The environment here is warm, comfortable, and fully equipped, allowing me to rest peacefully and gradually recover my health. Professional caregivers constantly monitor my physical condition and provide scientific dietary and nursing advice. Every day I would enjoy warm moments with the babies, gazing at their adorable faces. My heart was filled with maternal love. During this period, the caregivers also patiently taught me how to properly feed and care for the babies, helping me gradually adjust to the role of a mother. It took me half a month to finally settle on the babies' names. The older brother is called River, and the younger sister is Nova. During my stay at the postpartum care center, I also got acquainted with other new mothers. We exchanged parenting experiences together, sharing each other's joys and troubles. It made me feel like the days in the postpartum care center were as happy as being in paradise. Before I knew it, I had stayed at the postpartum care center for 40 days. On the day I left, I was actually a little reluctant. No matter how reluctant I was, going home was still a joy. On the day I returned to the villa, the 2 nannies also came back. I forgot to mention that on the second day of my stay in the postpartum care center, I gave them a vacation. After all, before I gave birth and during my hospitalization, they were quite busy and exhausted. The day after returning to the villa, the staff from the guest house came to visit me and the baby one by one. Before leaving, each of them gave the baby a red envelope. By the time the baby reached the 100-day mark, I had already finished my postpartum confinement. I hosted 2 feasts at the villa and invited all the staff to celebrate the baby's 100-day banquet. Days passed one after another, and I felt like the baby was growing so fast. In the blink of an eye, they had already learned to crawl all over the place. I also transformed from a novice mom who would cry whenever the baby cried into an emotionless mother who could calmly prepare formula and change diapers while the baby was crying. This period was the most exhausting time for me and the 2 nannies because it was also when the kids had the most energy. When they turned 1-year-old, I set up a grapevine trellis in the yard and used a specialized baby fence to enclose a small area beneath it. I laid out soft mats and filled the space with their favorite toys. Every morning after breakfast, River and Nova would whimper and fuss to go outside, one hand tugging at me while the other pointed toward the door, their big grape-like black eyes blinking up at me. Each time I couldn't help but feel both exasperated and amused. I'd call the nurses to bring out the playpen mats and toys to set up outside, then place the kids inside and let them play. I truly thought I'd continue living out this simple yet warm life in Yoon City. Little did I know fate had another cruel joke in store for me. I'll never forget that morning. The moment I woke up, I felt uneasy and restless for no apparent reason. I checked on my 2 babies. They were sleeping soundly with no signs of fever or cold. Everything seemed normal, yet something didn't feel right, though I couldn't pinpoint what exactly. At 10 o'clock, the guest house staff came to ask for leave, saying her father had been in a car accident that morning. The county hospital has limited medical resources, and with her father's severe condition, they could only stabilize him but couldn't perform surgery due to the lack of medical equipment. They could only stabilize his condition. Her family only has an illiterate mother and a brother who works in another city. The situation was urgent. Watching the little girl cry as she spoke to me, I quickly said I would take her there, as taking a bus might take who knows how long due to the emergency. Before I left, I arranged everything with the 2 nannies, instructing them to focus solely on taking care of the the baby and not to handle anything else after saying that I drove Chloe to the hospital. Just as we arrived, the ambulance carrying her father pulled up. After helping to get her father settled in, I drove home. When I reached the gate of the homestay, Grace called me thinking it was my baby crying for me. I hung up the phone and walked toward the villa. To my surprise, when I got home, I wasn't greeted by a crying baby but by Grace, her face full of panic seeing me return. Grace rushed toward me in tears, grabbed my hand and said, "The 2 children are gone." I felt as if my ears weren't working properly. How could I be hearing that my baby was missing? I felt as though my world had collapsed in an instant. My face turned deathly pale, my eyes filled with despair and terror. I couldn't accept this cruel reality. Tears streaming down my face, I grabbed Grace and asked her, "What do you mean the child is gone?" Grace told me that after I left, she and Monica were watching the 2 babies. They were doing fine, with both children quietly playing with their toys half an hour ago. Monica said she was going to the guest house kitchen to get some ingredients to prepare baby food for the 2 children. When I returned, after Monica returned a while later, Monica asked her to go inside and fetch some water for the 2 children. She went in to get the water, but when she came back out, she found that Monica and the 2 children were gone. She thought Monica had taken the 2 children to play at the front homestead. She hurried out to look for them but couldn't find them. After asking around the homestay staff, everyone said they hadn't seen Monica or the 2 children. She called Monica, but her phone was turned off. It was only then that she urgently called other employees to help search. Everyone combed the nearby area, but they still couldn't find them. After listening to Grace's account, I forced myself to stay calm and not cry. The most urgent thing now was to find the 2 children. I took out my phone and checked the villa surveillance footage. At 1:03 p.m., I saw Grace enter the room to fetch water. In that moment, Monica took out something like a folded face towel from her pocket, covered River and Nova's noses with it, and the 2 children immediately fell asleep. Right after she opened the door, a man dressed entirely in black, his face covered with a mask and hat, walked in. The 2 of them each carried a child and left. Watching this, my heart ached. I knew it. My children had truly been kidnapped. I dialed the emergency number and calmly explained the entire process of the children's disappearance. While the police were on their way, I made another copy of the surveillance footage as evidence. After the police arrived, I handed them all the surveillance backups, photos of the children and photos of Monica. Then I accompanied them back to the police station. Before I even arrived at the station, the officers there had already pulled up the surveillance footage and identified the suspect. From the footage, I saw that Monica and the man, taking advantage of the homestay staff's attention, carried the children out and got into a black van about 500 meters away from the homestay. Since the children had been missing for less than an hour and it was rush hour in the city, the police speculated that they probably hadn't left the urban area yet. They made wanted calls to police cars and stations along the route and notified toll stations at highway entrances and other checkpoints. Finally, I boarded a police car with the officers and followed their pursuit route. I kept calling Monica, praying she would turn on her phone, hoping she would answer. Whatever she wanted, I'd give it to her. Just let the 2 children be safe. During the chase, the other party seemed to realize I had called the police and that officers were tracking them. On the surveillance footage, the car that was driving perfectly fine suddenly turned right into an alley and disappeared. The nearby police quickly followed, only to find the car abandoned with no trace of anyone inside. It took over 10 minutes before the police car, I was in, arrived at the spot where they had ditched the vehicle. I ran toward the van, only to find it empty apart from the 2 children's outer clothes tossed inside. Clutching the clothes, I finally broke down. I hugged them tightly to my chest, sinking to my knees, my teeth grinding in sheer fury. I wanted to cry, but no tears would come. At that moment I felt so much hatred. Hatred for Monica and that man for stealing my children. Hatred for Grace for not alerting someone the second she realized they were missing. Hatred for Chloe's father for getting into a car accident today. But most of all, I hated myself. Why didn't I notice the nanny's strange behavior earlier? Why did I insist on driving Chloe myself today? Why couldn't I protect my own child better? My heart is filled with regret and hatred. I don't know if my child will return safely. Just then, the officer with me received a call. Someone had reported to the police station that 3 traffickers had been caught. The traffickers had 2 kidnapped children with them, a boy and a girl. Based on their descriptions, they sounded just like my River and Nova. At that moment, upon hearing that the children had been found, I could hardly believe it. Felt like a dream. The police and I hurriedly took the police car back. At the police station, I saw River and Nova had already woken up, though they were still dazed. There was a man sitting next to Nova. Without hesitation, I rushed toward the 2 children, pulling them tightly into my arms, and finally burst into tears. Looking at the still bewildered eyes of my 2 children, I wondered if I could have gone on living if I hadn't found them. Later, Grace arrived too. She comforted me and gradually I stopped crying. After listening to the police's explanation, I finally understood that it was the man next to Nova who, in an alley not far from where the traffickers had abandoned the vehicle, had abandoned their car. I accidentally discovered the child being carried by those 2 traffickers. As for how I discovered it, it was naturally because Nova and River's clothing and appearance didn't match those of the 2 people carrying the child, neither in looks nor in any other aspect. I merely asked a couple of casual questions, and seeing the 2 acting furtively and defensively, I became certain. After that, it was simply a matter of the man effortlessly subduing the 2 and personally delivering both the traffickers and the child to the police station with the help of his assistant. It was only when the police described the rescue process that I finally got a clear look at the man standing next to Nova. I recognized him instantly. That man was the one from that night 2 years ago, the father of River and Nova. I felt like the heavens were playing a cruel joke on me. 2 shocks in one day. The way he looked at me and then at Nova and River told me everything. He recognized me and he knew River and Nova were his children. After all, they both looked so much like him. But now wasn't the time to talk about any of this. I asked the police to let me see Monica. I wanted to know why she had kidnapped my children. When we met, Monica's eyes were full of hatred as she stared at me. I asked her why she did it. She said, "You know what? Just a little, just a tiny bit more, and I could have dragged you into the abyss of agony just like me. Then you'd know exactly how my pain tastes." I responded, "I don't understand. Before this, I had never met you." She said, "Yes, you didn't offend me, but what about your father? Do you know? My daughter was only 23 when she died. Do you know why she died? Because of your father. 10 years ago, he promised to marry my daughter. He sweet-talked her into being with him, and what happened after being with him for a year? My daughter got pregnant with twins too, but the babies were too big. She had a difficult delivery, bled heavily, and died. Do you know why? Because of your father. When my daughter was over 8 months pregnant, he disappeared. My daughter searched everywhere for him while carrying his child, but he was nowhere to be found. In the end, devastated, she went into early labor, bled out, and died on the operating table. Your father deceived my daughter, yet he still walks free and happy. Why? Tell me why." So after my daughter died, I spent all my time searching for your father to get my revenge. I asked everywhere and then I ended up being hired as your nanny. Who would have thought you were actually his daughter? How could I not hate you? What a shame those 2 brats escaped. All my efforts wasted. If it weren't for that man interfering, your children would have been sent to keep my daughter company by now. Ha 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 ha. As I watched the woman laughing manically, I silently walked out of the interrogation room. I didn't know what to say. Was this karma? After giving my statement at the police station, I took both children to the hospital for thorough checkups. Throughout it all, the man quietly stayed by my side. Finally, after he brought me and the kids home, he left. I thought he would ask something, but in the end he didn't say a word. The 2 kids came back and fell asleep again. I told Grace to go home first today, as I would take care of the kids. I gave the 2 kids a bath. I also took one myself, then went to the kitchen to boil 2 eggs to soothe my swollen eyes from all the crying. I lay on the bed holding the 2 kids and fell asleep. Throughout the night I kept having nightmares, dreaming that the kids were gone. Sometimes I'd finally doze off, only to wake up suddenly in a panic. I'd reach out to touch the kids, and so the night passed like this. Early the next morning, I woke up early and looked at the peaceful faces of my 2 children asleep, feeling utterly at ease. Without realizing it, the children had become my lifeblood. I went downstairs to the first floor, made breakfast for the 2 of them, and when it was about time I went back up to wake them. Perhaps due to the aftereffects of the anesthesia from yesterday, Both children seemed listless today, looking quite lethargic. After breakfast, River and Nova fell asleep again. I didn't go anywhere all day. I just stayed by their side. It wasn't until the afternoon that they regained their energy. Watching the two little ones laughing and playing, I finally felt a bit more at ease. At 6 o'clock, Liam, the staff at the guest house, came to find me, saying someone was looking for me there. As soon as he described the person's appearance, I knew who it was, so I asked him to bring them to the villa. 5 minutes later, watching the man standing at the gate of the courtyard, I silently invited him in. Seeing him immediately gaze at the two children playing under the grapevine, my heart was in turmoil. Although I had long prepared myself for the inevitability of being discovered one day, I never expected it to happen so quickly. Nova, upon seeing a stranger, wasn't as timid as usual and instead giggled while wobbling her way toward him. The man picked up Nova, who rushed into his arms. He played with River and Nova for quite a while until both babies grew tired and fell asleep. He then carried them upstairs and settled them in. The two of us sat on the second-floor balcony. I looked at him, unsure of what to say. Unexpectedly, he spoke first, introducing himself. That was when I learned his name was Alexander. Alexander, 28 years old, is the president of the Belmont Group. Alexander has always been the kind of child others admire. His excellence from childhood to adulthood is widely recognized. He started kindergarten at 3, primary school at 4, graduated elementary school at 7, was directly admitted to Jean University at 12, went abroad for further studies at 16, and returned to take over the family business at 19. After taking over Belmont Group within 4 years, he turned it into the leading enterprise among the nation's top 10 companies. The momentum of its development was so strong that even someone like me who doesn't pay attention to business was fully aware of it. This clearly demonstrates its influence. The moment I learned his name, I knew that if he wanted custody of the child, I stood no chance in a legal battle. I clenched my fists tightly, forcing myself to stay calm. I asked him what he wanted. Now he said, "Marry me." Once again, I thought there must be something wrong with my hearing. That day's conversation ended with my compromise because if I were to take him to court, I was destined to lose. Beaumont has the best legal team in the country. Alexander finished talking with me and then left. Before leaving, he told me that in an hour, he would be going abroad for a business trip which would take about a week. A week later, he would come to pick up me and the child. He left me with 2 bodyguards and 2 baby bracelets with GPS tracking. In the last week in Yun City, I cherished every moment with the 2 children. Accompanied by the 2 bodyguards and Grace, I visited all the scenic spots in Yun City. On the last day, I received a call from Alexander. He told me that at noon the next day, he would come to pick up me and the baby. Grace and I packed up all the belongings for me and the baby in advance. The next morning, after getting up, washing up and heading downstairs, I was surprised to find Alexander already sitting on the living room sofa on the first floor waiting. His early morning arrival left me utterly astonished. He urged me to eat breakfast quickly, and only then did I notice the dining table was covered with a wide variety of breakfast dishes. Looking at the steaming hot soup, dumplings and porridge, I calmly sat down and enjoyed them. With the first bite, I could tell these dishes were from that exclusive reservation, only private restaurant in Yun City known for its excellent taste. The restaurant is very famous in Yun City, but getting a meal there requires advanced booking, and they don't offer takeout. It seems like it's not that they don't offer it. It's just that people like me aren't important enough. The comfort brought by the delicious food eased some of my reluctance to leave. After finishing the meal, I asked him, "What about the guest house after I leave?" He told me that if I couldn't bear to part with it, the guest house would continue operating, and he would send a specialized person to manage it. The villa would also be regularly cleaned by someone, and if I ever wanted to come back and stay in the future, that would be fine too. With that said, I stood up and went back upstairs. Just as I entered the bedroom, the 2 children were already awake. Seeing me come in, they called out in unison, "Mommy!" I hurried over, kissed each of them, and soon the 3 of us were playing and laughing together. When Alexander came in, I had my back to him and didn't notice his arrival. It was Nova who saw him first, letting out a little shout, and only then did River and I realize he was there. Seeing him enter, I quickly got off the bed and went into the bathroom to tidy up my messy hair, which had become disheveled from playing with the kids. When I came out of the bathroom, I saw Alexander somewhat awkwardly trying to change Nova's clothes. I stepped forward, skillfully changing River's clothes while teaching Alexander, watching him awkwardly yet earnestly dressing Nova, frozen by her every cry. My eyes gradually filled with amusement. Long after I finished dressing River, Alexander finally managed to clothe Nova. Seeing the sweat on his forehead, I couldn't help but laugh. How I wished his subordinates could see him like this. I had him hold Nova while I carried River, and together we headed to the bathroom to wash the two little ones. Naturally, it led to plenty of comedic moments. Later, I guided him through feeding both children before heading to the guest house to bid farewell to everyone. Grace wasn't leaving with me. Her home was here, so I gave her an extra 2 months' wages as a token of appreciation. After returning, I held Nova while Alexander carried River, and together we got into the car heading to the airport. It wasn't until we entered the airport that I found out we were taking Alexander's private jet this time. And just like that, I was on a plane back to City C. 3 hours later, the plane landed at City C's airport. After leaving the airport, we got into a car that had been waiting at the entrance the whole time. The car drove all the way out of the airport, heading westward until it arrived at the gate of an estate. I thought we had arrived, but to my surprise, after the gate opened, the car drove straight in and stopped in front of a standalone villa. About 5 minutes later, I'm completely unfamiliar with City C, and have no idea where this is. But when Alexander told me and the kids to get out of the car, I did just that. Looking at the villa in front of me and then thinking about my small villa in Ean City, I couldn't help but feel that mine looked like a tiny toy in comparison. Under the enthusiastic gazes of the butler and servants at the entrance, I stepped inside. Once inside, I expected to see a luxurious and high-end decor style. Unexpectedly, it was very similar to my villa back in Yunnan City. The entire villa's decor, focusing on warmth and comfort with a secondary natural theme, made me feel instantly cozy and at home. Alexander took me around the villa while the two babies had long been taken by the nanny and bodyguards to play in the villa's children's playground. Where would they still remember their mom? It took me over an hour to tour the entire villa, and as for the garden outside, one can only imagine how vast it is. By the time the two children returned, 2 hours had already passed. After bathing the kids, our family had dinner together and then called it a night. The next morning, Alexander took me to get our marriage certificate. Looking at the marriage license in my hand, I could only sigh at how unpredictable life is. Just like that, I embarked on my married life once again. Evening after I finished washing up with the baby, Alexander returned after the child fell asleep. He was carried to the nursery, and with 4 nannies there, I felt at ease and went to wash up unexpectedly. When I came out, Alexander was actually in my bed. Seeing that he had already washed up, I froze in place at a complete loss. He looked at me, extended his hand and said, "Come here." After a long silence, I slowly moved my feet and walked over. I placed my hand in his palm. The next day at noon when I woke up, freshened up and went downstairs, River and Nova were already calling Alexander Daddy nonstop. I have no idea how he managed that for the following month. It felt as if I had returned to Cloud City. My days passed in a peaceful routine, with the only differences being that the children were taken care of by nannies and servants, the meals prepared by the chef were more delicious, and the living environment was better. Otherwise, nothing had changed except for at night. Every evening I secretly hoped Alexander wouldn't come home, but this peaceful routine was shattered. One bright morning I woke up early, roused the 2 children, and took them out to watch the dragon boat races by the canal in City C. Amid the enthusiastic cheers of the crowd, the races began. With both kids in tow, I joined in the cheering. After watching the game, we returned to the estate. To our surprise, the living room was occupied by 4 elderly people and a young girl. The moment we entered, they all rushed toward us with sparkling eyes. River and Nova were immediately swept up and adored by them. Judging by their faces, I realized these must be Alexander's grandparents, parents, and younger sister. The 4 elders took turns showering the children with kisses and hugs, playfully fighting over them. Meanwhile, Luna grabbed my hand repeatedly, saying how blind I must have been to fall for her brother, all the while wearing an expression of sympathy for my suffering. I couldn't help but laugh and cry at the same time. After all, Alexander was practically the cream of the crop among eligible bachelors. How could his own sister hold such a low opinion of him? Just as the two babies were about to burst into tears from all the doting, hugging, and kissing from their 4 grandparents, Alexander hurriedly returned. As soon as he walked in, he came straight to me, grabbed my hand, and stared at me under Luna's teasing gaze. I suddenly felt embarrassed. I removed his hand and walked towards the 2 children, comforting Nova when she was about to cry. After comforting Nova, I taught Nova and River to greet the 4 elderly relatives, having them say hello to their great-grandparents and grandparents. After Nova and River greeted each of the 4 elders one by one, seeing their overwhelmingly excited expressions, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. I had initially thought a prestigious family like the Beaumonts would be extremely strict about etiquette. Who knew they'd be so warm and welcoming? What followed was the Beaumont family scolding session aimed at Alexander, with accusations like how he blocked them from seeing their granddaughter-in-law and great-grandchildren, or how he brought his wife home without letting them know, and so on. It went on tirelessly for a full hour before finally stopping, only because Nova loudly complained about being hungry. At the dinner table, it became another round of the elders doting on me and the great-grandchildren. At that point, I suspected even if the kids had farted, these 4 would have found it delightful. That evening, my in-laws and grandparents, unable to bear parting with the children, stayed at the estate. The next day, by the time I woke up, they had already left. Only the child and I remained at home. I didn't know what was going on or what had happened. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Alexander came home early and then took the child and me out. I had no idea where he was taking us. After driving for over an hour, the car entered another enormous castle. Reading the words on the plaque, it dawned on me Alexander had actually brought me back to the Beaumont family's ancestral home. I had no preparation at all and just found myself stepping inside in a daze. Upon entering the old mansion, I felt like I had arrived at an ancient royal palace. Alexander told me that beyond the garden, there were several separate small courtyards. Still ahead, I was stunned. I knew the Beaumont family was wealthy, but I never imagined they were this rich. Judging by the layout, this courtyard house must have been at least the residence of a royal prince in its previous life. Alexander led me and the children straight toward the main house. After entering the front gate, I froze in shock. The courtyard of the main house was filled with a crowd of people. I estimated about 20 of them, men and women, old and young, watching as the children and I entered, all eyes turning toward us. My parents-in-law warmly came forward to greet me. After exchanging pleasantries, they took River and Nova in their arms, and everyone proceeded together into the house. I nervously reached out to hold Alexander's hand, trying to calm myself down slowly when Alexander told me not to be afraid, that his family would be very friendly towards me. Back in the house, guided by Alexander, I smiled and greeted his uncles and aunts one by one, receiving welcome gifts from everyone. Under the kind gazes of the Beaumont family, I gradually stopped feeling nervous. As for the twins, River and Nova, they were naturally very popular among the Beaumont family. Everyone adored them, and the 2 little ones received many gifts and loving kisses and hugs from their elders. Finally, we all had a lively meal together. That night, Grandpa and Grandma insisted we stay at the old house. 2 months later, I was expecting another baby. Everyone at the Beaumont family's old house was overjoyed by my pregnancy. Specifically, that very same day, me and my 2 babies were taken back to the Beaumont family's old house where my parents-in-law, my grandparents insisted I stay to rest during my pregnancy. I happily agreed, as for a certain man who cares about him, he's unimportant. As an expectant mother, I began my joyful pregnancy rest at the old house. As for Alexander, naturally wherever I and the babies were, he followed. 9 months later, I gave birth to another set of twins, a boy and a girl. Yes, I was pregnant with twins again, 1 boy and 1 girl. For having a baby, both my grandparents and in-laws gave me a red envelope of 100 million yuan each, along with some real estate as rewards. After my full month of confinement, I found out that Alexander had a vasectomy just a week after I gave birth, and he did it without telling me. I knew I scared him on the day I gave birth. That day, I almost had a difficult labor with severe bleeding, risking 3 lives in one body. With 4 babies already, I had no plans to have any more. The names of the third and fourth children were given by their grandparents. The third, a girl, is named Aurora, and the fourth is called Orion. A month later, the Beaumont family hosted a grand full moon celebration to formally introduce me and the babies, and River and Nova officially returned to the family. A year later, after Alexander's romantic proposal, we held a grand wedding. It was also around that time I learned my father's company had suffered financial losses due to mismanagement and had fallen out of the top 10 enterprises in City A. My ex-husband married his childhood sweetheart 1 month after our divorce. 6 months later, she gave birth to a boy, only to discover the child had congenital heart disease. They are currently abroad seeking medical treatment for their child. It's said that the couple's relationship is now on the verge of falling apart. I heard that my former mother-in-law kept sighing after she learned I married Alexander. If I hadn't divorced Damien, she said, the 4 twins might have been their family's children by now. Naturally, this reached Alexander's ears and he was furious. He made sure to cause no shortage of trouble for Damien's family's company. At my wedding, I invited my stepmother and younger siblings but didn't allow my father to come. I haven't forgotten why my 2 children were kidnapped back then. Speaking of which, one day after marriage, while searching for something in Alexander's study, I discovered something interesting. Inside one of his books there was actually a photo of me tucked away. To be precise, it was taken when I first entered high school as a freshman. On the back of the photo was written a line of poetry and a few sentences that began with "Love at first sight, now fulfilled as wished, may we share a lifetime of happiness, 3 meals and 4 seasons together." I still remember that day, holding that photo while waiting for Alexander to come home. When he finally saw the picture in my hand, I glimpsed a rare look of embarrassment on his face. Later, he confessed everything to me. It turned out that when I was 17 in my first year of high school, his aunt was the dean of discipline at our school. Having just returned to the country, he came to the school that day to deliver something to his aunt. At noon, as he passed by the school playground, he saw me playing with classmates and couldn't resist taking that photo with his phone. Back then, because of my grandfather, I spent my first year of high school at Hai Ching School. Alexander said that from that day on, he would visit Hai Ching School to see me whenever he had the chance. Sometimes it was on the playground, sometimes in the cafeteria, sometimes on the way home. That continued until Grandpa passed away and I transferred back to City A. He lost track of me. I thought there would be no chance to meet again, but unexpectedly, he happened to run into me during a business trip to City A. By then, however, I was already married to Damien. That night in your city, after learning about my divorce and solo trip, he specifically sent people to follow and protect me. He planned to come find me once he finished handling urgent matters, but in his haste, someone took advantage and slipped him a drug. Later, in my dazed state, I stumbled into the wrong room. Through a twist of fate, that night happened. The next morning, when he woke up and couldn't find me, he went to check the surveillance footage, but that particular morning the area happened to have a power outage. Just like that, he lost track of me. Who could have imagined that 2 years later, we would meet again in Ean City? And even more unexpectedly, that very night I ended up with 2 babies. Fate plays funny tricks, but in the end we didn't miss each other. May all lovers in the world finally unite as one.